David, have you found a house?
Yeah.
Is that a good question to ask?
Tiny homes.
Well, have you found a house too?
I found a few houses that I like. I haven't
Yeah.
gotten one yet.
Okay,
No, one already had an offer sitting over asking before we even got to start writing our offers. Just call the agent and check.
yeah, you got to, because you can go through that whole exercise of writing an offer and then find you had no chance.
Right. And the other one that you really liked, they postponed, it's pre-MLS now, they postponed it another week. So you can't see it for 2 weeks.
Oh my, okay.
Do you know who Kristen Johnson is?
Uh-huh,
She's weird.
okay.
I haven't met her yet. I don't know her personally. Launch Energy Brookside. this morning.
Okay, and where did my document just go? Come on, it must be, where are we? I just opened it. Okay, we're gonna be talking about, because we're in kind of an off period right now, this week and next week, just so that you all know.
Yeah.
We don't, we're done with Ignite. If, for those of you who are gonna be watching this recording, know that Ignite is recorded and housed on the launch Facebook page. And so if you have not gotten all the way through Ignite, that is what you need to do. That is not, just because we're not doing it in person, doesn't mean that you get to like skip it, because that's what gives you the overview that will help all the other things make sense. It's giving you the overview of buyers and sellers and starting this business and closing a transaction or from contract to close. It's giving you that big picture, that overview of all of it. Like I've said before, it's like it's snorkeling. And the next course that we're going to do that starts on July 23rd, the Lead Gen 36-12-3, that's scuba diving. That's taking Lead Gen topics and going deep on each of them. Because in Ignite, we just kind of mentioned some stuff.
Yeah.
We kind of talked about open houses, it was very light. It didn't like take you down deep and let you know, well, okay, you mentioned it, but how do I do it? So 36-12-3 is going to go really deep on everything from marketing to prospecting to.
Is that still the Zoom link?
Yes.
Okay, make sure.
Yes, it is.
We didn't
Yeah.
change it.
And so that's where I want you all knowing this is, and it's going to be where you're going to have homework. You're going to have to read, you're going to have readings. So this is more that you're going to have to put in some work and not just show up for class and say, I'm here. So that is the expectation, that you're going to do homework and do readings, because there's so much material to cover on each of the topics, on each of the Lead Gen topics and strategies, that there's no way we can cover it in just 2 classes. Okay, so and I want us to be able to do things in it too, and not just talk about it and not just excuse me, do the readings. I want us actually doing workshop stuff. Does that sound good to everybody? I'm really excited. I have done this topic with my experienced agents before in growth coaching, but we have never done it for the office or for the new agents. So it's like level 2 of learning. So for those of you who just came on Zoom, just talking about the next course that we're going to be diving into, and that is the Lead Gen 36-12-3. We have a couple of people who have already registered. I am asking you to enroll. You can come even if you don't enroll. However, for me to get the materials to you and for you to be prepared, because this course you're going to have homework. So don't, I want you committing to this, and you need this. How are you going to build and feed a business if you don't know how to lead gen? You're just going to be hoping and praying that you get lucky, and luck, while we'll take luck, it is not a success plan. It's not a long-term success plan. Does that make sense? Okay, I see Connor on, I'm going to expand page. Okay, Kira, okay, if you can be on camera, I'm gonna start, I want your faces, okay? I'm going to, because we have people here, I know, Connor, I see you right there. Love it. So we're going to, I'm gonna share screen here, so. our-
FYI, I'm about to walk in, so I'll see you here
Okay.
in a minute.
Sounds perfect. See you in a minute. Olgie's on her way. Okay, we are in the Brookside room. Oops, gotta do this first. All right. So today we're going to talk about, and we've covered this before. However, the reason I want to go into this in depth this week is all about buyers is because of changes that we're going to be experiencing. Oh, and I just casted and then I got dumped. That means
Watching the recordings and just seeing the funny.
Lordy. Yeah, you see all of our bloopers. Okay, what happens is other people are in these rooms and then they go to cast and then they go to the wrong,
Bring it, bumps us off.
and then they'll just dump me. They'll just dump me. So let's do a share screen with those of you joining us online. Okay, so this week is all about buyers. It's all about buyers because that's where our conversations, well, it's going to be different for sellers also. Can you all on Zoom hear me all right?
Yeah, I can hear you and see the screen.
Yay, I'm gonna scrunch you guys down, no offense. I'm gonna scrunch you down so we can have this. So I'm gonna pass out here to David, Serenity, and Megan. And I'm gonna pass out my power tool. Oh my gosh. Who keeps kicking me off? I'm gonna kick you. Okay, let's not do that anymore. Okay, so we're going to talk about the steps to working with a buyer. Now, here's what I know. This is the ideal order, the ideal. However, I know that sometimes ideal doesn't happen, right? It doesn't. However, what I do know is what's going to happen is this. Come on. You're going to want to stop at step 1, and you're going to have a buyer that wants to start at step 5. Here's step 5, schedule and showing properties.
No,
Well, no, they do.
I'm saying we shouldn't do that then.
And here's where our world is different. I used to tell you guys in these trainings that, you know what, sometimes you're going to have to take somebody out and show them a house or two before they'll sign that buyer's agreement. Well, now with the lawsuit, can we do that? We're not going to be able to do that as of August. It's July. Okay, so that's why I wanted to really concentrate this week on buyers, because the good thing is you guys are new enough that you don't have really bad habits. Because there are too many experienced agents out there who have not been having a buyer sign a buyer's agency until they go to write an offer. Well, did you learn something different in license law class? Say yes. Say yes, you did. We were never to do that. We were never to start acting like an agent before that was signed. Now you can open up a door. You can tell them the price of a house, but you can't say, well, here's what the comps are in this neighborhood, and here's why this is a good house, and here's this floor plan, or this is you know, what's been selling in the neighborhood. You can't do that. Those are agent activities. Those are agent services. And we're not supposed to be doing those activities until they have hired us. And how do they hire us? By signing the
Yeah.
buyer's agreement.
Yeah.
We're not hired until they do that, even if they say, oh yeah, I'm ready to buy a house. So let's work through steps 1 through 5, because you're gonna have to figure out, how am I gonna, when they wanna go to step 5, how am I gonna get them back to step 1 and get them through these steps? And it's not gonna be easy. Some will be fine with it. They'll cooperate and you'll be fine and dandy, but not all the time. So let's look at, there are different power tools that I have. And one of them that I love and used, actually it was my own buyer information sheet. And that had the questions I needed to ask when they called me or contacted me saying, I want to buy a house or I want to see a house. So those questions were things like, well, by when do you want to move? In what area do you want to move? Come on in. All of those things. Come on in, Olgie.
Sorry.
No, glad you're here. Two-fisted drinker.
I know, I have to, you gotta even it out with the caffeine and the water.
I love it. That's how Rosa is every day when she comes to work. She's got her, yeah. She's
Yep,
got her
even
two.
it out.
I can only juggle one. And that's even a challenge for me. So when we're doing that, we've got to gather information. And so one of the things that you all have to get very good at, and I wasn't in the beginning, is asking good questions.
Oh, I'm not good at that. I realize. But I'm getting there.
I wanted, you know what I wanted to do, Serenity? I wanted to tell them everything I thought they needed to do. So I would literally vomit information on people. I did. And what happened is I really didn't find out a lot about them, except that they wanted a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house in Overland Park and this price range. And then I realized I spent time showing them houses that were not a fit, because grab a chair out there, Jeff, come on in. And so that wasn't good, because you know what happens when you start showing a buyer houses they're not interested in?
Waste everyone's time.
You waste their time, and then they start questioning whether you're really going to be able to find them a house. They start questioning your abilities because you're showing things they're not interested in, and they think we're psychic, right?
Yeah.
And we're not. So you've got to get really, really good at asking buyers and sellers good questions so that you can do your best. And that's why I will say to them, while I need to know the basics of what you want, that 3-bedroom, 2-bath, and the price range in the general area that you want, I got to know more about that. I need to know, Ogie, how are you going to live in this house?
Like, what are you looking for in this house?
How are you going to live in this house? Do you work from home? Do you need a space for that? Do you have a hobby that needs a dedicated space? Do you have pets? Do you entertain? Is your house the house where the family comes for holidays? Yeah, exactly, like mine. Okay.
You know, it's tiny little kitchen, it's because it's not very
Yeah.
big.
Do you love to cook? That's not me. I love to entertain, but I don't like to cook. I only cook for parties.
Yeah.
And then it's fun. Everyday cooking, to the no, to the no, that's not, no. So we've got to learn, how are they going to live in this house? Do their kids have certain outdoors? When somebody says, and here's where you've got to learn to keep asking questions. David, you say to me as a buyer, I say, what kind of backyard do you want? You say, I want a big backyard. Well, why is that important to you?
I have 4 kids under the age of 10.
So does that mean, David, you want to be able to send them outside on a regular basis.
Or in the basement.
Okay, okay. So,
She
so.
said that out.
No, but do you see, it's funny and it's important.
Yeah.
Because it shows that he needs additional space
Yeah.
for these kids so that he can keep his sanity in another part of the house. While he loves his kids, I can tell. There's times where, or for me, it was, I only had one kid, but the toys in the living room just really, I couldn't, that was hard. I was like, no, I need a space where she can just explode with her toys.
Right.
Because I can't take that. So we've got to learn more about them and how they live in a house. And then I'm going to ask them, well, in your current home, if they're currently in a home, what is it that you love? And what is it that's missing from this home that you want in your new home? And then I want to know of if any style of home on the outside, what's your favorite? So Olga, what's your favorite style of house?
I love a Spanish style.
Ooh, beautiful.
Yes.
Well,
It's very-
no, I get that with both.
I mean,
Yeah.
Ah, checks out.
Correlates. David, what's your favorite style outside architecture?
I like ranch.
Mhm.
Okay.
Ranch house.
Okay. Yeah, no, that's great. Serenity, what's your favorite?
Oh, we live in a ranch, but I don't like the ranch.
What do you love? If you drive by and you're like,
I think something like a 2-story or there's 1.5.
Jeff, do you have a specific architecture?
Well, it's kind of, yeah, but it's a weird answer because I like colonial, but I also have plans drawn out for a container home.
Cool. That's super cool.
I have, so two extremes.
That's okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I love Tudors. I love Tudors, but I also like a cabin.
Mhm.
Mhm.
So I like extremes also, depending on the setting of it.
Right.
And I live in a Tudor now, and I used to drive, here's a story. I used to drive, it was close to my parents' house. I used to drive by this house all the time, going to my parents' house. And it's in the country, it has some acreage, and I think I love that house. I love that house. And one day there was a sign in the yard for sale. I'm like, trying to keep my cool. I said, we should go see that. Because my husband at the time, we were thinking about moving and getting a little bit of acreage. He goes, okay. And I'm like, yes. Go see the house. My house is not on the market, nothing. I walk in that house and I'm like, to myself, I'm like, I have to have this house. I have to have this house. And I owned 2 houses at one time because I had to have this house. I had to get a bridge loan and all of this to make it work. I've lived there 22 years. I love my house. But it is a house I loved for years.
Mhm.
So isn't that something? But it was a Tudor, and you don't see Tudors in the country very often either. But it's funny how we get also on Lee Boulevard up here, because I grew up in this neighborhood, there was a little stone house. Because a lot of those on Lee Boulevard are stone
Yes.
houses. There was just this little boxy stone, like little cottage kind of look.
Mhm.
And I said, when I was a little kid, that's where I was gonna live. Now they tore it down and did a rebuild, broke my heart.
Yes.
But it's funny how I love a stone front on a house.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So for you, those of you on Zoom, what do you love? Connor, what's your favorite kind of house?
I like the Brookside homes with the big front porch.
Connor, I
on
can't hear
my-
you.
Oh. Can you hear me now?
Oh, you're unmuted, but I cannot
Oh.
hear you. Hold on. Hold on, let's check. Yeah. There you go. I can hear you.
Okay, you can hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just saying, I like the Brookside homes with the big front porches on them. I think those are like is it called like a craftsman style home? Or I don't know
Craftsman,
what
or
it,
those are, it depends, there's also, what is that, shirt waist is that square with a big front porch.
yeah.
Sometimes that's what those are called.
Yeah.
And some of them are craftsman style.
Mhm.
Yeah, love that. Kira, what kind of house do you like?
I like industrial settings and then along with a little bit of hacienda. So
I would love that. I love that. Autumn, what kind of house do you like? See if Autumn can, she might not be in a position to talk. She might just be listening. Okay, so can you see how you have to ask good questions? You have to ask in-depth questions. So sometimes we get so excited that somebody says, I want to buy a house, and you're just like, let's go, let's go. And we get excited, they get excited, but we don't take the time to figure out what they really want and what they need, and what are their motivations, and what are their timelines? Are they in an apartment? Okay, so let me ask you a question. Jeff, if somebody's in an apartment and they say that their lease is up in September, when do they need to start the process in shopping?
Oh. So I would say at least 4 months prior.
Yeah, so think about it. We've got to get you pre-approved. And we don't know if that's going to be easy or not. We just don't know. Also, because there's fewer houses out there, we don't know how long it's going to take us to find you your house. And once we do find your house, how many days is that once you go under contract on average? Well, but average, 30 to 45. So you back that up. And did you know that depending on when they close, that they don't have to pay that first month's mortgage? So you could get them into a home a month before their lease is up. Beautiful, because then if they needed to paint or they wanted to not have to move in one weekend, which is brutal.
Or one day.
Yeah, in one day, which is like crazy.
That's what I've done, but.
Yes.
Miserable.
It
Yeah.
is miserable. So here's where we as the experts have to know these timelines, because consumers don't. So then we back them up and say, you know what? We got to get on it right now. Are you ready? Because there's steps that we need to be taking. We can't wait 2 months out, because it might take us longer than 30 days to find you a house and then 30 days to be under contract. So that's where we have to educate them. And then we have to talk to them about, if they say, well, in 6 months, I wanna, well, if we found a house now, what's your buyout for your lease? Right? We've got to find out that information, because they may be okay with that if they found their house to do that buyout, whatever their lease is. But most people don't even know what that is. And some people don't know that they could maybe go month to month or what have you. What if it takes us longer? Do you know if you can go month to month? And if you can't, then we got to really be ready and prepared. And this is not the market for a buyer to just casually go shopping and get a house. It's not, is it, David?
No.
David's going through this process right now. He is living the experience as a buyer. He just experienced the seller experience.
Yeah, I put an offer, well, I was gonna put an offer on the house, less than 24 hours open, going at 15 above asking.
Yep.
While I was typing them, literally on the phone.
Yeah,
typing
we
them.
were on. Have you talked to the agent yet? See what the status is, see if the other, has any other offers?
Yeah.
We're gonna make that call first. Sure enough.
I'm also not, just went through that process where my lease was ended.
Yes.
And they were asking, okay, if you wanna go month to month, cause we found the dream house, which we didn't expect to find so soon.
Yes.
And then the month to month was 2 times the rent.
Yeah.
So we had to find other intermediate.
I just do some temporary
Yeah.
housing, right?
Yeah.
So, and then that buyer pre-approval.
Right. I was just getting ready to ask you about that because, especially like a first time buyer and you've got to get their credit check and you got to figure out if somebody's going to have to start massaging their credit history. And
Yep.
they're going to have to start tweaking some things.
Well, and then the other thing, if you aren't talking right away about the money, meaning how much money is gonna come out of their pocket during this process, most buyers really don't know past the down payment. They focus on, well, how much of a down payment do I need? They don't know about an earnest deposit money. They don't know that they're gonna have to pay for an appraisal. They don't know the cost of inspections. They don't know that if the first house they go under contract and they do all the inspections and they decide to cancel, they don't know they don't get that money back. And do they have enough money to do that on a second house? Cause a lot of them don't. A first-time home buyer, they're just rubbing their pennies together, right? To do all of this. And here's another layer. Let's go into reality right now of what our situation is. They also might have to have the money to pay a portion of our commission, if not all of it. And that is something, that is a reality that most buyers are not aware of, and they have not been saving money to do that. So for us to be able to creatively figure out how can we do this and make it work. So but you've got to figure this out and figure out how are you going to help them achieve what they want to achieve. That pre-approval, remember, Loans in KC shops multiple lenders so that your buyers can have choices. What's the most money they're going to be spending a month, and what's the biggest debt they're going to have? Their home loan. Shouldn't they be doing comparison shopping for a home loan? Most don't. Most talk to one lender. Rarely do they talk to more than two. The great thing with like Jason and Shane and what they do, they're going to go out and find the best choices and bring them back.
Yeah, and Shane will answer your call. I called him this weekend. I just need an educational moment. And he took like 10 minutes and just like ran me through some scenarios. So that
Love
was
it.
really nice to have that support.
Well, and that's the thing. You all have to empower yourselves to strongly recommend that your clients work with lenders that are gonna get the job done. I would love to tell you, here's what's gonna happen. Jeff, you're gonna have a buyer, they're gonna come to you pre-approved. And while that sounds lovely, oh, they've done some of their homework. That's great. Well, it's gonna be Rocket Mortgage. And you're gonna be going, oh crud. Hell is on its way. Sorry, bring a chair. Okay, from right out there.
Okay.
Come down here, step. Yes, we're here.
Okay.
Come on in. And Megan, if she can have your, I wanna steps to working with a buyer or mine.
Yes.
She can have mine. Oh, that's yours.
No, I took a picture of it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I took a picture of the backside.
I have
Yeah.
that printed off.
Okay, perfect.
Where's my teacher?
I know, Mrs. Huntley.
Ah.
So,
Oh,
so when you get a buyer that comes to you pre-approved, you've got to know what you're going to say. Don't say, if it's Rocket Mortgage, you're going to learn as a buyer's agent or as an agent, you're going to start hearing the good lenders and the not so good lenders, because not every lender can get them to the closing table or to the closing table on time. And you'd think that's their job. But, and I was dumbfounded because I took it for granted that all lenders were alike, right? They're supposed to know what they're doing. Oh no. Same with title. You think that they all know what they're doing. They don't. Or they don't do it well, or they don't have enough staff and everything. So that pre-approval, here's what I say. If the buyer comes to me already pre-approved, I said, that's great. I said, but you know what, Olgie, I ask all of my buyers to get a second opinion. And here's why. 2 reasons. 1, I want to make certain that you're getting the best loan product for what you want to achieve. I do not say cheapest, because cheapest does not always equate to better.
Yeah. Would you say, make sure what?
Make certain you're getting the best loan product for what you're wanting to achieve. And two, I want a backup plan. Because I want a lender that if we're 10 days out from closing and your lender says, oh, it doesn't look like we're going to be able to close on the 10th. And you're like, it's a contract. The seller doesn't have to extend because our lender didn't have their act together. They don't have to, and they can financially penalize the buyer if we extend the closing, as they should. I mean, think about it. That's an inconvenience, especially if there are any dominoes to this transaction, then it can be very dicey. And there usually are dominoes that seller can only buy when their buyer buys their house, and then that, and then that, and then that, and then that, right? So there's a whole chain of people impacted by this one transaction. So I want to know that even if we move forward with your lender, that if we get to those 10 days out and things are not on schedule and they don't have things done, and I want to know I can go to a lender that can get it done. Yeah.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
So is there a difference then with working with the first group you mentioned versus with they come pre-approved and then you go find a backup plan? Does their credit take a ding every time?
No, it depends on when and that's what's so important. And that's what Jason and Shane were sharing last week or the week before with us, is that they actually have a window, 30 or 60 day window in which their credit can be pulled for those reasons. What's lovely about Shane Loans and KC, it only is one hit, even though they're talking to multiple lenders. That's beautiful. So be prepared that you're going to have, and it only takes one bad experience for you to really believe what I just said. You could listen to me now, or you could wait and experience it, and then it'll really drive it home that a good lender is worth their weight in gold. And you've got to partner with good people, because remember, you're a risk manager. So David, part of your job as a real estate agent is being a good risk manager. And that means trying to take all of the surprises out of the transaction as best as you can. And knowing that your buyers with a good lender is being a good risk manager, right? So that's what I mean by that, because do any of you get paid before closing by your clients? Are they paying you every time you go show a house? No, they're not. We're doing that for free with the hope that they're going to close on a house. So you're already take high risk every day in this job, because we don't have a guarantee that they're going to close on a house. Even if they say they want to buy or they want to sell, it's not a guarantee. Right? So we as agents have to do as much as possible to take those risks out of the transaction. So then what you're going to do is, prior to the appointment, and say to them, here's why I want to sit down. Remember, I need to know how you're going to live in this house so that I can do the best possible job. I'm not going to waste your time and show you houses that are not going to meet what you're wanting. But I got to really know, I got to dig deep so that I'm not guessing. Because otherwise I'm guessing, and that's not, no, I want to show you houses that have the things that you want and need. Now, has anybody heard the saying that buyers are liars? It's an adage that we say. We don't say that to their face. Here's what it really means. From my perspective, here's what it really means is, the ideas that a buyer starts with and comes to you with on how much they want to spend and what kind of house they want and what kind of neighborhood they want to live in will most likely not be the same as what they actually buy. Because first, a lot of times they don't know what their dollar buys. They don't know that house that they love in this neighborhood, they can't afford yet. Or maybe they didn't know that. I remember before I got into real estate and looking at houses, and I thought, there's no way I can afford that neighborhood. could. Oh, yes, I could. And I ended up buying. It wasn't as expensive as I thought. So because they don't have access to market knowledge like we do, and they can't do all the research that we can do, they've got preconceived ideas, and most of them are not really based in reality. It's just kind of their dreaming and hoping, right? And so we've got to help that come together with what actually they can buy, and explain that unicorns are rare for a reason. And if you're wanting a unicorn house, then we may need a much longer timeline to do our shopping, right? So prior to that appointment, do you all understand and remember from license law class about that buyer agency brochure? And you've got to explain agency to them. And that is like the most confusing brochure, is it not?
Yes.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So how do you explain agency and what we do here in this office? Anybody want to give it a whirl? On Zoom, you can jump in too. How do we explain what the heck we do when it comes? Are you just going to give them the brochure and say, hey, this is just different kinds of representation? Is that what you're going to do?
Yeah.
Olga is shaking her head, yes, and then no. She's not speaking, but she's shaking her head. So you've got to know these things. Now, I don't go through all of it.
Yeah.
I say if you decide, David, to hire me, I will be your designated agent. And what that means is I am your exclusive agent, and I'm representing you. That means I have to keep your confidences. I have to do my fiduciary duty in representing you, and keeping your interests as number one. Because this is where you've got to be able to explain to them what you do. And what that means is I'm going to be able to counsel you. I'm going to be able to negotiate on your behalf. I'm going to be able to help you come up with a plan on buying a house and a strategy of buying a house. Because here's the other reason that we have to talk, is because we have to come up with a buying strategy, an offer strategy. I don't want us just going out shopping and then we find the house that you love, absolutely, and we haven't talked about different strategies on how to win this house. Because if there are multiple offers, there are multiple ways in which we can put together our offer. So it's not just you saying, well, here's the price I want to offer. Well, we've also got to talk about appraisal contingencies. We also have to talk about in its present condition addendum. We also have to talk about inspections because of that in its present condition. We have to talk about the exclusionary, not the
Escalatory clause.
escalatory. Yes, escalatory clause. Whoop,
That's enough.
more coffee. So there are strategies that we need to talk about before we're in the heat of the moment. Because if I throw all of that at you at that moment that you found your dream home, you're just going to stress out. And I want us thinking and talking about this. Do you have enough money to even go over list price? And that's another thing we're going to have to talk about. You're going to get pre-approved. And I'm going to tell you, you're going to see a house at the top of your pre-approval, 250. And I'm going to say, we can't look at 250 houses because you told me you didn't have extra money to go over list. And it's highly unlikely in that price point, since it's so competitive, that we're going to be able to put together a winning offer. Does that make sense?
When another thing with the finances that clients are very unaware of is, even if they don't have money to go over listing, they have all these expenses. That's why the buyer worksheet is so important. They have lender expenses, title expenses, inspection expenses, all these things. If they only have $10,000 in the bank, you have very limited resources as to what they can do, because most of that $10,000 is probably going to the closing costs already.
Yeah.
So they have nothing extra. So you've got to factor that in when you're looking for a home, because you may need to You need to ask for less on the house price or ask for
100%.
buyer costs to be covered.
Yeah, and we
So-
can't guarantee we can get that from
You
a
can't
seller
Guarantee, but you can.
in this
ask.
current
But-
market.
But your buyer has to know that they might get rejected because they have such limited funds to work with. It's
Yeah.
very challenging.
So we've got to think ahead of them. That's our job. So we've got to think ahead of them and make sure we're not showing them houses that they're not going to be able to win. The same with if you have an FHA or a VA buyer. Do not go showing them a fixer-upper that's like falling apart. It will not pass the FHA or VA appraisal because they do the appraisal and then they do what I call as a quasi inspection on the condition of the house, the health of the house. Because remember, because of those being very affordable loans, the bank wants to make certain that if they have to foreclose, that it's a decent property they're going to be foreclosing on. It can't be something falling apart, right? So they're not going to let that happen. So you show a VA buyer a house that doesn't have flooring, meaning the carpet got pulled up and just underlayment, that is not considered flooring. If the bathroom sink or toilet are missing, that is not a functioning bathroom, right?
So you should- no, I'm just kidding.
Not for the loan. In some people's world, yeah, they might be fine with that, right? So this is what we have to think of so that we're not taking in our excitement to go out shopping with them. Do you check on MLS to what type of loan the seller will accept?
Always.
So besides making sure they know everything, all the added expenses, that you give them all the information, is it also smart to just go show them houses a little bit under their margin just to be safe?
Oh, no, you have
You
to in
have
this
to.
market.
Okay, because you can't trust, I mean, that they're gonna give you all the money that with all the expenses, you have to go under the margin.
Because of what Megan said
Yeah.
is when you do that buyer's expense worksheet, and if you have not attended Linda's contracts class on the buyer and the seller, it's recorded on Facebook on our Zoom. You have to, because you by law, you're required to do it at the time of writing an offer and submitting offers to a seller. So, and you've got to make sure they understand the money part before you go shopping.
For sure. I just mean, is it good to go under, if they're looking for homes, go way under that?
Well, you've got to kind of figure out what houses have been selling for in that area and then prepare them. Like David was saying, I think before you got here, he wanted to put an offer on a house because he's a buyer right now. And it was within 24 hours of the house going on the market. It went under contract 15,000 over list price.
Oh my-
And when we looked at the comps though, they were under what they were asking. Like I was in the ballpark of what I was gonna offer. And like,
Comps are
Even
just right
adjustments.
now.
yeah,
Comps right now are just a small indicator. They're not as good as they were before for us. They were more solid, kind of what the buyers were willing to do. Right now,
It is all over. I
it
just
is
looked
all
yesterday.
over. It is just us at least seeing. So yeah, that's where if it's a great house in a good neighborhood and a decent price, then yeah, you're gonna have multiple offers or you're gonna have over list price. So we've got to prepare our buyers that, and remember, where do we have the most buyers? You can actually tell if you want to do some fun research, go into MLS and do some certain price points.
Mhm.
Do like 150 to 200, do 200 to 300. See how many sales there have been in those different price points. And that's going to tell you how big the buyer pools are and the competition. So if you do that, then you're going to be able to say, oh, I've got a 250 buyer. Oh my gosh, in Olathe, that was the most sales were in their price point. Okay, so we're going to be in a highly competitive bubble. And so here's what we have to do to prepare. Can you see how important it is that if we're not preparing them, then you truly are just hoping that it works out and that they won't see that you're not really helping them in the way that they need. Because then they will start to doubt you. You start submitting offers and you're not winning. They will start, right or wrong, they will start doubting you and your abilities to get them a house. So you're going to need to articulate as clearly as possible, why did they lose? And that's why you want to talk to the listing agent if they will share with you, why did my buyer's offer not win? And if it went 20,000 over and there was no way they could have done that, then there was a buyer that could do something that you couldn't. So no matter what we did, our offer would have never won. Make sense? So you're going to have to explain these things to them, not just say, oh, we lost. Seriously. They will doubt you. You know, you get to the fifth offer and they're burned out and they're feeling hopeless.
Yeah.
Then they're gonna say, Leah, I'm gonna take a break. We're gonna take a break.
Oh, yeah. And my clients did that when we walked on our fourth one, because they were not due in its present condition, which I agree with. They wanted their inspections, they wanted the seller to help make repairs. And so we lost every single offer and they just got so frustrated. I just had to take a mental break. You know, it's trying on them.
It is very trying. You have to prepare them and say, this is all, you get to decide in the end what you're willing and not willing to do to win a house. And I'm going to support you, but just know that there are buyers out there that may be willing to do what you won't.
Right.
And I'm not saying that you have to go there, but just know it might be harder for us to find a house. Are you okay with that? You got to prepare them for the hard. You have to. Otherwise, yeah, you're going to burst their little bubbles. The other thing I like to do is there is a cheat, and you can do it yourself. The 5 must-haves. I love this with couples. I want them to share with me, and I give each of them a blank piece of paper, or there's actually a form, the 5 must-haves. And I say, write down, without showing your partner, write down the 5 must-haves in your new home. And then I've got a blank one that I then have them turn that over and I say, oh, David, so you want a ranch, but your wife just said she likes a 2-story. So when we go to do the couple's 5 must-haves, how are we gonna make this work without getting a divorce? Sorry, you're climbing stairs. Right? So I love this exercise because it makes you understand. It's going to do a couple of things for you. One, you're going to probably through that exercise see who really is the decision maker, because don't assume that the one who talks the most is. It's not always true. It could be the quiet one sitting there who she's got final word, no matter how much talking he does, right? Or vice versa, right? So it helps you understand their dynamics better, and it gets more clarity on what they think they want. And did you hear how I said that? What they think they want. And I have to say to them, what we've put together now our next task is to see in your price point how many of these things can come true. Mm-hmm. Because that swimming pool that you wanted with the slide and the waterfall does not happen at 250.
You might not even get a pool.
Maybe add a 1 million.
We're gonna get a kiddie pool, but you're gonna have people say that though. And you're gonna be like, well, that's lovely, and no. Or they're gonna say, I want to live in Prairie Village and I want a 3-car garage and I want to be at 385. Well, no, those are the $1 million houses that have, because they were torn down to have 3-car garage, because in Prairie Village, we only have 1-car garages because those were built after World War II for returning vets. And most families only have 1 car. And the ones that have 2-car garages are usually on the corner lots.
Right.
Okay. So that's where we have to start taking the buyers are liars dreams and start matching them to really what they can afford and what's even available in the areas they want to live. that make sense? So this is like an adventure. It's like you're a detective. It is.
I wouldn't call them.
David is not having any fun in this process. However, David, what you're experiencing is you're understanding, because I haven't moved in a long time, you know, it's hard to put your feet in the stress that our clients are going through. You're going to be stressed. We as agents, we live in a world of stress too. But it's not the same as our clients. So that 5 must-haves, love that, love that exercise with them. Again, you've got to get them participating so that you're not doing what I did in the beginning and just vomiting information on them and not making them part of the process. I just thought there's so much to tell them.
Do you do like deal breakers as well?
Mm.
Like instead of just the must.
Well, the must-haves of
Maybe
these
see how
must-haves,
educated they might be and.
I
what
love that.
False ideas they have. Well, I don't want a septic tank. Well, it may not be that much of a deal. You know what I mean?
I love that. That's kind of what the 5 must-haves should be. Which of these 5 are if we can't have it as a deal breaker? Okay. And here's what I will tell you about deal breakers on the buyer and the seller. That what they said to you today may change. Like a seller will say, I won't take less than list price for my house. 45 days later, we're on the market and they're like, what's that offer? They're like, I'll take it. So listen to them, but please remember, it's not written in stone until the moment is there. Because I've had too many agents, and myself included in the beginning, thinking, well, they said they wouldn't take less. Oh, wait, they've changed their mind. They're looking at it differently because their timeline is now shrunk because they've been on the market for 45 days and they got to get moved and the kids in school before school starts. Right, David? So that's where we have to make certain that we're listening to them. And that's why if you're out shopping with them and you're not finding houses then you reconvene. I actually, before I do, during and we're going to talk on Thursday about the buyer's consultation, but I do online shopping with them first before I take them out, meaning I go on MLS based on just some of the things they told me in the preliminary conversation. I pick about 5-6 houses and we do some online shopping so I can see their reactions to different kitchens, floor plans, bathrooms, that type of thing. Because again, what they tell me, not everybody's really good at articulating what really they want.
And they don't always know either until they're in the house, and then they see it, like, okay, when I said I liked.
Open
white
concept.
kitchen, whatever, it's like, this is too sterile though. So you get a feeling for what they're envisioning, and it's easier to help them find something. You have to go see them in person a few times.
Oh, and that's why I start with that online shopping, so I can just start to kind of get because I say, Leah, do you like to do online shopping? Most of them do, right? Okay, we're gonna do a little online shopping today. Okay, so I've got about 5 or 6 houses. We're gonna go through them. I want you to give me feedback because I also want to train them that when we go see a house, you gotta tell me what you think about it. Because I got to know if we're going to take that sheet and tear it up because that's a no, or is it still in the mix? I want us deciding then. And where do we have that conversation?
Away from the house.
Thank you, David. You better assume that every single seller has a camera somewhere. They've got a Ring doorbell or they've got cameras inside that house. You do not talk about that house, good or bad, while you're in it.
Last one had it in the front. On the back porch.
Yeah.
So when you think you go outside and you don't see anything.
You're like, oh, we can talk.
I was talking to a friend of mine who went into the house with the buyer, and they were like, "Ooh, we don't love this," and all that, and the seller was in the house. And overheard them talking about it.
Or they'll overhear it on a camera.
Yeah.
And then they say, and then your buyer says, you know, but even that, I still want to make an offer. And then the seller heard that. They're like,
No.
yeah, they just dissed my house.
Exactly.
Am I going to like really be excited about accepting their offer? Probably not. I've got other offers to look at. So that's where educating, it's this balance of, in the very beginning, of educating them and getting information from them. You got to spend the time with them. So what we're going to do on Thursday, we're going to do the buyer's consultation. Okay. Because you guys have to get comfortable on how much information to be sharing with them and what information. I touched on some of it, but we've got to do it in an organized manner. And then we've got to make sure that we've got materials to give them so they can look at it after we've met with them. Because they aren't going to remember everything. One of our big jobs is repeating ourselves. You've got to repeat yourself for your buyer and your seller over and over again of what comes next. Because, you know, the first time they're so excited, they heard like 30% of what you said. So you've got to have also the materials or a smart plan or what have you that reinforces what you told them. Because I would tell you, when we get into the buyer's consultation on Thursday, I will tell you again, we'll go through what the perfect consultation looks like. But if they have two kids, one being maybe a toddler and a baby, and you're sitting in one of these conference rooms with them or at a coffee shop or what have you, and those little kids are running around, you're not going to do the ideal buyer's consultation. And so there's going to be things that you probably don't get to cover because the baby just cried and the mom had to leave and go change a diaper or go feed the kid or whatever. And so you've got to have backup information that you get to them that they can refer to and what have you. One of the things is on your KW app. Did you know that you can customize the guides? Did you guys know that? So on your KW app, the white background, red letters, there is something called guides. And in those guides, where are my guides? I'm trying to remember. Well, they should be right there. Let's find. I'll double check it for Thursday. I think a smart plan is a really great thing to put them on, and it's just repeating what you've been sharing with them, but in smaller doses as we go along. And then I have a smart plan for when they go under contract. And I'm going to be creating some of those for you and have them available so you guys can use those. I've already got one for the open house leads that you can use and do a follow-up on. Was this helpful today?
Yes, yes, very.
Okay, so Thursday, buyer's consultation. We're gonna talk about it. I'm also gonna share the buyer's needs analysis with you that comes from Ignite that gives you a slew of questions to ask. You're never going to ask all of those questions, but it shows you the depth of questions that you could be asking about that maybe you're not thinking about. Okay. All right.
Where was the guide you said?
Well, I've got to double check it.
Oh,
They-
I didn't see it on the app either. I know it's on the computer when you get on there. But that, I thought it was connected. I wonder if you have to send it to somebody first.
Oh,
Remember.
it's not in the same for they changed the format
They
of
did
the
change
app.
it, yeah.
And it looks good, but I don't know where they get those. Okay, everybody on Zoom, any questions, takeaways? What you got for me?
Well, that sounds good for Thursday.
Good. Kiara, any takeaways today? Okay. All right, you guys. Thanks for hopping on. And I see We did have one comment, sorry. Oh, Autumn, I'm sorry, Autumn, I didn't see your chat until she loves Victorians when we were talking about style
Oh,
of
yeah.
homes.
She-
Yeah,
Mm.
so pretty, so
Okay.
pretty. I love old houses. I'm not a,
This-
I always lean towards old houses. I do. I like a creaky floor. I do. I'm okay with that. I love a creaky floor. I'm A-okay with that. So, okay, thank you, Zoomers. We'll see you on Thursday. If you can be here in person, that's even better, but I'm so glad you're on Zoom.